Good afternoon, and welcome. We are starting shortly. You can see our presenter is already with us. So shortly we'll be beginning. So welcome members. We would want to start off today's webinar, and just to introduce the webinar. These webinars are brought to you by the Directorate of Research at JKUAT, and my name is Dr. John Kinyuru, and I'm the Director of Research. And it's through the Directorate that we are able to organize these webinars. So let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you who are here today, ready to listen to our speaker. And our speaker today is Sheillah Ommeh. I hope I've pronounced this right. Sheillah is a Senior Research Fellow at JKUAT in the Institute of Biotechnology Research at JKUAT. And she's in the section of Animal Biotechnology. Sheillah is a renowned researcher in that area, and specifically she's done a lot of on poultry in Africa, and in collaboration with a lot of international partners. Sheillah has this year received several awards, recently being an award for being one of the most, one of the prolific from JKUAT this year. And she was awarded the top female author, scientific author from JKUAT. So let me take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Sheillah Ommeh and welcome her to give us her presentation on the topic of the Guineaful as an emerging livestock species. So welcome, Sheillah. You could share your presentation and take it up. But probably before you say, as you load your presentation, I've seen Professor Nguso, the director of IBR. I think Professor Nguso, if you can hear me, you can say a word. The director of IBR. Professor Nguso, please go ahead. Thank you. Probably we'll give him some other time, but Sheillah, please load your presentation and take it up.
very much, Dr. Kinyuru. All protocols observed. I really want to express my gratitude for the Directorate Research reaching out to me to give out this presentation about some of the ongoing research that I'm doing. I don't know whether everyone can be able to see my slide.
Yes, we can see your slide. If you could do
okay. Is it now on slideshow?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So what I did was to focus this presentation on Guinea Fowl, which is ideally one of the many indigenous poultry which I've been undertaking research on since 2012 when I joined the university. So I must say it's one of my favorite poultry species, and I'm really happy to take you all through today. And what I'll start with is to give a background about Guinea Fowl generally, and then look at some of the past researches that I've been able to do with my research group here at JEQUAT that includes graduate students and also national and international collaborators worldwide. So just to give you a brief, it's important to understand, the Guinea Fowl taxonomy. So it's under the class of avians, meaning it's a bird, and then in the order Galliforms, and in the family Numididae. So under that family, there are 4 genuses. The first, you have the crested guinea fowls that stay a lot in the forests. Then the unplumed, which are mostly common in the tropical forests of Congo. Then the vulturine, which is bald. And if you've been to most of these national parks like Tsavo, I'm sure you've seen such a kind of guinea fowl. And then, of course, the numida, which is the guinea fowl species that we all know because it's helmeted. So looking deeper into the wild helmeted guinea fowls, there are ideally 9 species. 8 of them are extant, meaning they exist, but one of them is extinct. And this is the Numida meleagris sabii, which became extinct in Morocco. And then you have 2 that are common in West Africa, that is Meleagris galeatus and Meleagris papillosa, 2 in South Africa, which is Coronata and Mitrata, and then 4 in Central and Eastern Africa. So in Kenya, you find the Meleagris somaliensis and the Meleagris meleagris. Now, what is important in this slide for you to note is that the Numida meleagris galeatus is the common ancestor of all the domesticated guinea fowls that are in existence today, as you will see. So going more into the domesticated helmeted guinea fowls, so these ideally come from a common ancestor, which is the Numida meleagris galeata. And they are more so known by their different varieties in terms of plumage, color. And you can see there are very, very many variations. And I'm sure most of you have been able to see this in the farms. And what is common in Kenya, you'll find the pearl and also the white and also the dundo. So ideally what happened in the initial domestication process from the Numida meleagris galeata, these varieties came up because of the different plumages that the breeders then selected. And you find these kind of varieties all over the world. In fact, they are very common in Europe, like France, Italy, and more so in West Africa, and a bit in Eastern and Southern Africa. So when you look at Guinea fowl as an emerging poultry species in Africa, of course, it plays a very important role. And in most of the countries in Africa, you find that they're about 0.1 up to 10% of the total country poultry status. But from our own observation in our research group, we find this is an underestimation because especially in East Africa, most of the guinea fowls are consumed as bushmeat, meaning people don't keep them in the farms, but rather prefer to go and hunt for them out in the wild. Now, for those that are kept in farms, they are under a mixed poultry system. And in East Africa, you'll mostly find them, being ornamental in pairs, a male and a female. They're really not kept for feeding. But in West Africa, Guinea fowl is really a popular delicacy. And then when you move on to specialized restaurants, like if you've been to Carnival, Fogo Gaucho, and even Safari Park, you'll find that Guinea fowl is normally served as a game meat because it tends to be more flavorful. So apart from that, you find that most farmers prefer to keep these birds, as ornamental pets because they are pest controllers. And also they're used as a security system. They are also found, to tolerate heat stress for those who tend to keep them on a larger scale, and also diseases that would affect chicken. And we've also seen recently a lot of use of them in biomedical research. But then nothing much has really been done to exploit the guinea fowl species. And that's where we felt our research really needed to come up with some quests to get answers on how we can really understand these poultry species, and then of course, see how it can be then become either complementary to chicken as a very good source of quality meat and eggs. So there are, of course, threats already facing guinea fowl farming in Africa. As I mentioned, most of the instances, they're being sought illegally through bushmeat, and therefore that raises the issue about conservation. And then it's also not easy to just keep guinea fowl. You can't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to keep guinea fowl. You really need to go to the Kenya Wildlife Service and apply for a license to be able to rear them. And also, as we speak, there's a lack of a proper breeding program. Though when I spoke to the Directorate of Production under the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Research and Irrigation, they are trying to set up a breeding program for guinea fowl alongside other emerging poultry like quail. Then what we've also discovered with our study, and I'll talk about this in details, we are coming to realize that the current domesticated species actually is a small founder population, meaning that even if you wanted to expand this in terms of breeding, the genetic pool is not really adequate. And of course, a plethora of husbandry issues that would then need to be addressed if the guinea fowl farming is to be successful in Africa. So looking at guinea fowl, I'm happy to report that this is one of the only fowls whose origin and domestication is solely in Africa. Chicken, in as much as is popular in Africa, the origin and domestication is in Asia. So what really happened? How did chicken come to overtake guinea fowl? Well, it all lies with human movements and migration. And if you really check on livestock, it depends on how humans were able to migrate and colonize the new territories where they settled. So you find chicken during the migrations of Asians and even the whites from Asia and Europe. It was easy for chicken to really penetrate into Africa. And I don't want to say really overthrow guinea fowl, but then that's what happened. So as the fall for Africa, we really need to find a way on how we can set up breeding programs to really develop this indigenous poultry, because it already has attributes that are well adapted to the continent. And this was really discovered by Darwin long ago when he was really looking at some of these unique animals that are adapted in the continent. And he even proposed that guinea fowls ideally originated and were able to be domesticated in Eastern Africa. And you need to think about the ancient empires that existed then in Africa. This including the Egyptian Empire, and of course, the empire back then in Sudan. that then led to the migration of the Nilotes and Bantu out of East Africa into West Africa and then back into East Africa. So you find a lot of evidence from archaeology, linguistics, and ethnography that then, is a back and forth. Is the domestication in West Africa, East Africa, or is the cradle in East Africa, domestication in West Africa? And we also have some footprints that were discovered in Tanzania, famously known as the Tolil footprints, where you find also footprints of birds that are shown to be those of Guinea fowls, meaning that indeed the Guinea fowls, the cradle could probably be in East Africa. And the range could be from Tanzania all the way up to southern Egypt. So with all this evidence, our research group thought this would be a very good point to start and find out, number one, is really Guinea fowl from Africa, and where did the domestication happen? And what is the current status in terms of the population of the domesticated Guinea fowls? So this is just one of the studies that was published in Animal Genetics, where I collaborated with the collaborators in Kunming Institute of Zoology. So this study looked at the domesticated helmeted Guinea fowls in Nigeria and studied the mitochondrial DNA D-loop. This is a very important marker that ideally is able to give the genetic background, which is very important to tell you about the origin of a particular species. So what we found from this research, and where we had outgroups from Kenya, is that basically the domesticated helmeted Guinea fowls are divided into two haplogroups. But among the populations, there is no genetic differentiation. So what this means is that there's lack of structure. Therefore, it means that domestication happened rapidly, and then there was a very wide dispersal of the Guinea fowls. Now, moving on to studies which was undertaken by two students within my group, that is Philip Murunga and Grace Mora, with other national collaborators from the National Museums of Kenya, Kenya Wildlife Service, and the ministry. We went further to study Kenyan populations of the same mitochondrial DNA D loop, but also added a candidate gene for heat stress, because we know that Guinea fowl is well adapted into the harsh climatic conditions of Africa. So what we found, because our samples had both the domesticated helmeted Guinea fowls and the wild helmeted Guinea fowls, we found very interesting results. Indeed, the domesticated helmeted Guinea fowls clustered together with those haplotypes from West Africa, showing that indeed the domesticated in Kenya originated from West Africa. But for the wild Guinea fowls in Kenya, they formed different haplogroups. And this is what you can see in the purple, all the way from C, D, E, F, G up to I. These are different haplogroups. And then you have the two main groups where you have the domesticated populations. So this means that domesticated helmeted Guinea fowls originate from West Africa, most likely from the unique subspecies, the Numida meleagris galeatus. But then the Numida meleagris has unique haplotypes, meaning that our wild Guinea fowl population is really rich in genetic diversity. Now, going on to the heat shock protein 70, 4 haplotypes were discovered, with 2 being very unique to the wild Guinea fowls. And as I said, this is a candidate gene implicated in heat stress or heat tolerance. So this project then went on further, because we were just looking at candidate genes and mitochondrial DNA D loop, to sequence the whole genome. And here we were able to collaborate further with collaborators in Kunming Institute of Zoology and others from Europe, and also within Kenya. So ideally, the aim was to really answer the question once and for all: when did this domestication happen? And are we then able, if we have the genome, to fish out genes related to domestication? Because remember I said the small studies showed that we have a lot of inbreeding present in the current domesticated guinea fowls, meaning we can't use that population. Another domestication will have to happen if we are to really come up with a breeding program. So we wanted to find out, are we able to fish out these genes and also further genes for production and adaptive traits? So this just shows a map where we sampled, and ideally we focused on East Africa, where we had wild and domestic helmeted guinea fowls, West Africa, and then Europe and also Asia. So remember, for the domestic helmeted guinea fowl, there was a lot of dispersion into Europe and also back into Asia. And we also had outgroups from other genera, which is the vulturine and also the crested guinea fowl. So the first result was very interesting. The outgroup definitely had the vulturine and crested guinea fowl, but you find that the wild helmeted from Kenya ideally is the most, what I would say, it's still wild. It's still in the most purest form. Then you have the wild helmeted from Nigeria, and you find a lot of feral populations within Nigeria, meaning that the wild population is mixing a lot with the domesticated in Nigeria, unlike in Kenya, where the wild stays in the wild and the domesticated more in the farms. And then you have, of course, the domesticated from Iran, Kenya, Italy, Hungary, and China, all grouping together and being very close to Nigeria. So indicating that most likely the West African subspecies is the possible ancestor. So comparative genomics revealed that ideally the guinea fowl is closely related to chicken and also turkey. And if you look at the different orthologs, there's a lot of genes that have not really been able to be annotated within the guinea fowl. And our group is the second group to really release the draft genome of the guinea fowl alongside another group that published back in France. So meaning there's a lot that needs to be analyzed within the guinea fowl genome, but already there are a lot of genes that have been shared with other domesticated poultry species like chicken and turkey. So this is a list just showing some of the positively selected genes in the domestic helmeted guinea fowls. And there are a lot really related to the pathogen response, like Escherichia coli, amoebiasis, among others. So meaning that guinea fowl really has a lot of genes which tend to be upregulated for them to be able to survive in some of these harsh and diseased environments in Africa. So this just shows the structure, the population structure, and whatever is in orange is the outgroup guinea fowl populations, and then in green are the Kenya wild populations. The third row is the wild Nigeria guinea fowl population. So this clearly shows, when you look at the other domesticated populations, they seem to have genetic pieces from the wild helmeted Nigeria. So this, if you look at from K4 up to K7, indicates that the Nigerian population, which is the Numida meleagris galeata, most likely is the ancestor of all the domesticated species that we currently have. Then this result also just points to that. This is the gene flow. You find that those in gray is the wild helmeted Nigeria, which has a negative Z-score value against all the others, just pointing that indeed it is the source of the domestication. So this is a very important result, just highlighting the domestication process. It seems that up to 25,000 years ago, there was one common ancestor for all these guinea fowls. And then an expansion happened, and you have the wild helmeted in Kenya, existing all the way up to the current state. But then the wild in Nigeria, you find that there were different domestication processes around 7,000 years ago, and also 4,000, between 4,000 and 2,000 years ago. And we would want to attribute that to the movements. Because remember, we believe that these particular species, all of them existed in Eastern Africa. So there must have been some movement from East Africa into the rest of Africa, either through the Bantu movement or Nilotic movement. So we suspect that the Guinea fowls moved, and then there was a domestication process, initially 7,000 years ago, and then between 4,000 and 2,000 years ago. And then, of course, just showing this result is supporting what we've suspected all along, that all the domesticated Guinea fowl species, ideally, they show a lot of inbreeding because of a lot of existing bottlenecks. So what this means is that immediately after domestication from a very small founder population, there was rapid expansion of this population and then dispersion. Most likely, if you look at the Kenyan situation, when the Bantu moved from West Africa into Central and East Africa, they just maintained the same breed, and this did not really crossbreed with the other species as they moved along. And you find it interesting that even in Kenya, in Western Kenya, you don't find these species easily interbreeding with the species that is present in Kenya. And also the genes for the neurotransmitter hormone. And this is very important because when you're talking about domestication, something has to change because Guinea fowls are known to be very, very, I don't know how to say it. Those in the wild are very, very hyperactive. And in domestication, you need an animal that is very docile. So one of the genes, the GRIK1, which is ideally in charge of the excitatory neurotransmitter receptor, was found to be under positive selection. And this really excited us because it means then that using modern genetic tools, it can really be possible to domesticate the current wild species of Kenya, which is already known, as we've seen from results, to be very, very, to have high diversity, to be able to domesticate it and not undergo what the farmers are undergoing right now, where they try to domesticate, but they're unsuccessful. We've known cases where even farmers like block the ears of the Guinea fowls, so then they don't hear the cry of those in the wild and run back. Or they try to bring the Guinea fowl in the farm and then they're not able to survive with the other poultry. But once we are able to manipulate this particular gene using modern tools, then it can be easy to domesticate whatever is in the wild, and then it will have the docile behavior and then become domesticated. So insights from all this study, at least we have been able to confirm that the cradle of Guinea fowl is indeed in Africa, specifically East Africa. However, domestication happened in West Africa during the initial migration of humans. And we've also been able to reveal genes related to pathogen resistance and adaptation to harsh environments, which is very common nowadays in Africa. And then we've also come up with a strong candidate gene, which ideally can be manipulated to try and domesticate further the Guinea fowls. So all this really we feel has provided a very valuable genetic resource that can now further be manipulated by relevant stakeholders to try and improve this species and also conserve it. Because at the end of the day, we don't want people going to hunt whatever is in the wild. It's easier if we can domesticate and improve the current genetic pool. So the next steps that is being undertaken ideally by 2 PhD students is looking at comparative genomics with the chicken genome, and also the functional genes that, of course, would be useful for production and adaptive traits. And what is of interest ideally is to try and think of redomesticating the guinea fowl again from the wild species, and then establish a proper molecular breeding program as we try to popularize this fowl to be complementary to chicken. So I wish to really acknowledge the following graduate students, and also the main collaborators whom we've moved along in this research since 2012, and of course the major funders being Jomo Kenyatta University, International Foundation of Science, the National Research Fund, and of course the Sino-Africa Joint Research Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sheillah. That very good presentation with a very good scientific backing and referencing. And really, we are very proud that this is really your work, and these are the things you are really spearheading, and we are very proud to be associated with your success. So members, we now are ready to get into a discussion, and we'll be very happy to take your questions. Kindly post them on chat, then we'll be able to pick them up. It's also important to note that this webinar is also being streamed live on the JQuat YouTube channel. And even after the webinar, you can still find the recording on YouTube on the JQuat channel. So you can always go back to refer and listen more, and even refer other people to it. So we are now ready to start taking questions and comments, but it is important to note that actually Guineaful was actually originated from Africa. That is very interesting. Yeah, and specifically it was domesticated in West Africa. But probably if you go to West Africa now, maybe the chicken has overtaken it. And probably ducks, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure maybe chicken is really, probably, I'm not sure. So you can confirm this. But in Kenya, at least I know I've visited a few farmers who are keeping Guineaful, yes? Mm. But why was it overtaken? If it was adapted for Africa, you know, with all the genetic mapping you've done, you've seen that actually it can survive, or it can stand a lot of, microbial attacks. Yeah. So why was it overtaken?
So just to answer your question, it stems back to the politics of colonization. It's the same question: why did maize overtake sorghum and pearl millet? You know, why did the cow, the main cattle that we have, overtake the indigenous breeds? It was more of a political issue during the migration of the humans. But I want to attribute that more to the Portuguese. When you look at the Portuguese colonization from China into Africa, they're the main people who really moved, you know, a lot of livestock into different continents. And with chicken, interestingly, once it came into Africa, the first wave of indigenous chicken, it was able to survive within the environment. And then it was also easily able to be domesticated, unlike guinea fowl. When you think about it, it was able to be easily domesticated. So that is the main reason, I think, why guinea fowl was overtaken, because for a long time, guinea fowl was being hunted as bushmeat. And then the small founder population that was domesticated in West Africa, if you go to West Africa, it's a different story. Guinea fowl and chicken are almost at par. But in East Africa, that has really not been the case. So it's just the same story about colonization, just like maize and sorghum.
Would you say that
Yes.
the quail bird that was here some time back, which was
So quail is an interesting story. When you go into Western Kenya, the quail business is business as usual. People still harvest the quail from the wild and eat. But when you come to other parts of Kenya, especially Nairobi, Kiambu, and Kajiado, because of the, how do I say it, the pyramid scheme or the business opportunity that really came up and gave people hope that this could really enrich their lives. So you find a lot of people went into quail farming, but once the business opportunity wasn't there, abandoned the quails. But I must mention something. In our study, which we did even with one of the students in collaboration with Professor Sheillah, we did find that indeed the quail meat and eggs, they have all these attributes which people were talking about, meaning they were high in mineral contents. And we know minerals like zinc are really have a role to play in boosting the immune system. So it's true, most likely there was something about the quail, but it is the marketing that really was the wrong approach. So if we were to revisit that, it's just to change the marketing strategy and not be how it was.
okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Because I was a quail farmer, and by the time
Yes.
collapsing, I had over 3,000 birds. I had to give them to villagers.
Yes.
Dr. Amos Mbuga is asking, what are the additional barriers to domestication besides specific genes, e.g. GRIK1? I'm not sure what that is. Number two, are there any losses, phenotypic or genotypic, following domestication? And number three, what superior characteristics do chicken have that would make Guineaful domestication challenging?
Okay, so the main barrier with Guineaful domestication is just the behavior. If you're a Guineaful farmer, and I know many farmers who've tried to go into the wild to trap whatever is in the wild to domesticate, and they find it's very challenging because after some time, the wild Guineaful will still go back to the wild. And even if you pick eggs from the wild and you bring back to even have chicken lay them, the chicks may or may not stay within the homestead. They're likely to leave and go. So it is something with what I would say, the mind, the neuron, which needs to be altered. So then the Guineaful can become more docile like the chicken. And that's why we feel if we are able to get these genes that are congruent with this behavioral change, and we are able to manipulate them, then it can be easier to domesticate the Guineaful. That would be the main barrier. Otherwise, if you look at other issues, they tend to have more meat to bone ratio. They also tend to lay more eggs, but they are very poor brooders, meaning the females is not easy for them to sit on the eggs. So these are some of the things that would then need to be manipulated. Now, talking about losses, phenotypic or genotypic, domestication always brings a trade-off. And these are some of the things that, and that's why, genomics now becomes important, is to follow downstream. Once you domesticate, what is being lost, what is being gained? And is there a way where you can still do the breeding? Then you make sure whatever is lost is incorporated back. That is the power of genomics, unlike previously where you do it blindly through crossbreeding and just studying the phenotypes. So superior characteristics that chicken have. What I would say is that right now, it's very easy to domesticate chickens because they were domesticated back then. But Guineaful, it is just that making them become docile and not be aggressive. That would be the main issue in the domestication.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I just do a follow-up to that?
Yes,
The last comment. Yeah. Because my question is, because you may be able to make the guinea fowls more docile. But I think it would be really important to really understand, as I said, what makes people favor chickens above guinea fowl if we are to be able to succeed in having farmers really take up the breeding of guinea fowls in a big way. So that question was just much more holistic besides maybe the genetic attributes or the extent to which they're docile, because I think that would be critical if farmers to eventually to take up guinea fowl. I think there must be clear advantage. I do not know, for example, the duration. Is there a difference, in terms of how long, between laying the egg to a fully grown, mature guinea fowl, the duration, is it different compared to a chicken or anything else? So that's the context in which that question is also framed, so that there's greater success in that.
I think I lost you.
I was done with the question. I was just asking that in terms of these additional attributes that would be necessary to look into so that farmers actually are able to take it up.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I was done with the question. I was just asking about, what additional things might need to be considered, for guinea fowl to be truly taken up, besides making them more docile. Because if chickens have a number of superior characteristics, even if the guinea fowls are made more docile, if there's no comparative advantage, it may make it challenging. Although I noted what you said in terms of survival attributes and others. So it was more a very broad question in terms of how you can allow for that transition to guinea fowls. Thank you.
Yeah, you have raised a very important point. So in all this, it would require a rural participatory approach. There would be no need breeding for something which farmers are not interested in. At the end of the day, because what you would want is farmers to be interested, and then there's already a market for some of the products that are envisaged. So there's a student of ours, Victor Kwesisi, from the SHRT, who did a market survey of guinea fowls and quails and found that really people are interested in guinea fowl and quail meat and eggs. The only challenges that they had is that, the current breeds, because they are highly inbred, the production is very low. The production is very low. And then also most confessed to hunting the species from the wild. So that's where now we saw really there's a gap for, trying to breed guinea fowls now from a fresh gene pool of the wild populations and not relying on whatever is existing, because that from genetic studies is already, I would say, diluted, even to use that word.
Okay. So Sheillah, what would we say that probably the reproductive phase, or rather the period of reproduction, is it similar to chicken? Is it longer? How long does it take to hatch the eggs? Are there diseases that affect it? Probably those are some of the challenges also that may make chicken better in terms of competitive advantage.
Actually, they have more or less the same time. And by the way, guinea fowls are more resistant to diseases. Let's look at Newcastle disease virus. If you're to walk into a farm right now with an outbreak, you'd find chickens and turkeys highly affected with the disease. But then guinea fowls and ducks and geese would be mildly sick. So in terms of diseases, also what I would call worms, they tend to be more resistant as compared to chicken. But what makes chicken favorable is that because of the wide diversity of chicken, this is a study that one of my students, Grace, has done. You have a lot of ecotypes of chicken. So there's that extant diversity you can always go back and use to breed. But guinea fowl, there's a very narrow diversity which you can go back. And so that kind of inbreeding tends to dilute some of these, what I would call reproductive features, like how they'll quickly lay eggs and all that. And that's why now it would need fresh stock, ideally, to be injected.
Okay, okay. So and in this case, where do a farmer get the fresh stock or new stock because of the interbreeding problem?
There is no fresh stock. What is there? So what has been happening is that you'll get farmers traveling all the way to Western Kenya, where they believe that's where the most diversity is, especially Busia County, Trans Nzoia County around Mount Elgon. And from our studies, indeed, we saw Guinea fowls from around Busia, border with Uganda, Mount Elgon, have a higher diversity comparative to what comes into Nairobi, then goes into Mombasa. So you might find a farmer traveling all the way into Busia to get fresh stock. But still, whatever is in Busia or Trans Nzoia is really the same. I would say it's still the same genetic background. It's really what I would say narrow. I'm trying to use a layman's language. So we just need a new breeding program where we go back into the wild population and try to, what I would say, domesticate. Yeah, that's what is needed right now.
Thank you. Thank you. In the genome analysis of the Guinea fowl, were the genes that were acquired through, were there genes that were acquired through horizontal gene transfer?
I didn't get it in there.
In the genome analysis of the Guinea fowl,
yes.
Genes that were acquired through horizontal gene transfer?
That's an interesting question. I would say yes and no, for the reason that the populations that we looked at were a bit diverse. Because Kenya, we were looking at wild and domestic populations. Nigeria, wild and domestic. There was also Sudan, wild and domestic. And then Europe, the domestic. And then China, domestic. So really, and they were really, the way we carried out the sampling, it was not really easy to pinpoint that these genes under selection were from horizontal gene transfer. What we did was just to assess using different analysis what is positively selected, either for the production and adaptive traits, because we were really keen on that. Adaptation and also fishing out whether there's really a gene that we can use to manipulate for domestication. So it's the kind of sampling was not really able to distinguish for the horizontal gene transfer.
Thank you. Thank you. Comment. I think yes, people who are farming, and I think in this meeting, kindly just let us know your experience.
Hello, I don't get you.
We're saying that there are some people in the meeting who are probably farmers or who are working. Yes. So kindly, as the meeting progresses, like to hear their experiences. So kindly alert us, let us know if you are a farmer with us and you would like to participate or to air your experience. There's a farmer who is saying, sent me a direct message saying they have guinea fowls and a couple of eggs. So if you need new supply for your research, you can get in touch with them. We can link you up with them, Daktari. Someone called Minor. But there's a question from Peter Gavinji, who is asking, he would like to know how the origin was in East Africa, but domestication happened in Nigeria. That is the first question.
Okay, so that is very easy.
Yes.
According to archaeological evidence, both in Egypt, the drawings in Egypt, and also archaeological diggings in Tanzania, there's evidence that guinea fowls existed in East Africa. So when you look at the Nubian Empire that existed in Egypt, we find that the Bantu migration most likely moved out of Egypt towards West Africa. And there's a high chance that during that migration, a subpopulation of this guinea fowl, the Numidas, Meleagris, Galeata, moved along with the people into West Africa. And this was then domesticated in West Africa, okay, under the Bantu migration. And then the same Bantu migration now migrated eastwards back into East Africa through Congo. So origin and domestication are two different events.
Okay.
I hope that is clear.
All right. So the second part of his question was, you talked of genetic manipulation. How does this manipulation differ from GMO?
Well, there are many approaches someone can use to be able to do this molecular breeding. We have current tools known as CRISPR-Cas9, especially if we are talking about domestication, and you'd want to directly manipulate a gene. And that's where now comparative genomics becomes important, because we want to know why was the chicken easily domesticated as compared to guinea fowl. It's just to compare mutations in these genes, these domestication genes. And if we find there's a difference, then we can use tools like CRISPR-Cas9 to directly input that change into the guinea fowl. And of course, this will undergo a lot of the obvious regulations if it's to happen. The other easier option would just be to do crossbreeding with the wild population. You go into the wild and you crossbreed with the domestic population. So there are many ways where you can, many means which you can use to carry out the domestication process. But the most direct would be to use the current methods like the CRISPR-Cas9.
Thank you very much. Joshua Mwangi is asking, is there a plan to have a marketing strategy for the fowls?
The first thing is first to come up with what I would call a breed or a variety. Right now, in the past 8 years is just to get information to understand. The next step would be to come up with something as Jomo Kenyatta, which would be like, we've come up with this kind of breed or variety. And then, of course, we know there's a market, because as I said, there's a student of ours who did this market survey of this emerging poultry species and found out that there's a lot of potential for guinea fowls and quails. So when we are now at the stage where we want to develop guinea fowl and we want to work along with all stakeholders, farmers included. So then farmers or people like Peter Gadinji would really have their concerns answered. So we might maybe in a few years involve everyone, and those with concerns have their concerns answered. So then when we develop this variety, we are now able to market it, especially in terms of the meat and eggs. Remember, we don't want this to replace chicken. We want this to complement other poultry species, as a protein source. So that is the whole idea, is not really to replace chicken. But because we know guinea fowl and quails are really being eaten a lot as bushmeat, and we know the dangers of consuming bushmeat, something that has not been checked for disease. That's where zoonoses come up. If you go and eat something from the bush and no one has really checked it, through extension services and everything, you're likely to get a zoonosis. So the idea is in Africa to try and domesticate some of these species which people are eating as bushmeat, because they've eaten it for many, many years. That is the whole idea.
Okay. And is the meat or the eggs nutritionally different from those of chicken? I remember, to put it in context, one of the reasons why quail was really, brought down was because they said, oh, the egg has a lot of cholesterol, the meat has a lot of cholesterol, so you eat quail eggs every day, you'll be dead of heart attacks, etc. So are there nutritional benefits or difference between fowl meat and chicken meat and egg?
Yes, definitely. As I said, there's a study, a small study, which we carried out with Professor Sheillah, with one of the students, Margaret Chepkemoi. We found that when you look at the quail eggs, especially the wild quail eggs, they really had the richest or the highest nutritional profile, the wild quail eggs. This is different from what was being farmed, the exotic quail eggs. That was a bit different. Now, when you look at the indigenous chicken and the guinea fowl, they are more or less the same. When you look at the nutritional profile of the meat and eggs, they are more or less the same. But when you go into the broilers, then the nutritional profile was lower. And that publication is out in Google Scholar, by the way, Chepkemoi et al. So ideally, guinea fowl, quails, and indigenous chicken, they really have high nutritional content, which, the African continent should really get into.
Okay. Thank you very much. Joshua Mwangi is asking again and saying thank you for your question on markets. But he's also asking, when are we likely to have this species ready or available at JKUAT for farmers to take?
It's a process. Animal research is not like plant research, because what we've done was already known. So animal research, through the Nagoya Protocol and the access and benefit, they've really changed regulations. When you're doing such diversity studies, the knowledge that you get belongs to the country and the community. So we will need we'll need even more time, maybe 3 to 5 years, to be able to develop a product. And here, as I mentioned, we really have to work with all stakeholders to be able to do that. It's really not straightforward as plants. It's a bit complex. So maybe I would say, because we have now everything at hand, maybe 3 to 5 years. Okay. As for the market is there. It's only the product. So either we remarket whatever is in existence, but as I mentioned, you can create a market, but then the supply is too low because of the very slow reproduction rate. That's why we need another, I would say, domestication and breeding to be able to have the supply meet the demand. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Probably it's important for me to mention that some of your publications are also available on JQuat Journal of Agriculture, Science and Technology. I've posted the link on the chat. We just released a new issue this month. So kindly just, if you click on that link, you'll be able to get us. You can also find us on the JQuat website. And I must also say that in the coming issue, we have one of Sheillah's paper that has to do with these things. But we must come to an end, but we cannot finish without me asking this question, Sheillah. I want to be a farmer, a Guineaful farmer. Where do I begin? What's the process?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So the first place you'd want to visit is the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Irrigation, the Department of Production, which is based in Kitengela, where they have the Institute of the Emerging Livestock Species. Because in my best understanding, that's where they have all the latest phenotypes for guinea fowls, for quails. Yeah, that's where they have, even for bees, but let me mention the guinea fowls and quails. So that would be the first place to go. And then you can be able to get at least the varieties where at least you're sure that they don't have any disease. Then the next step would be to apply for a license from the Kenya Wildlife Service, because in as much as we have farmers in Western Kenya who just keep 1 or 2 of these guinea fowls as ornamental, if you want to go medium or large scale, you'll need a license to be able to keep this guinea fowl. So then you go apply for a license, and then after that, you're good to go. Yeah, those are the 2 places I would recommend.
So in terms of you only need that one license from the KWS.
Yes, the Kenya Wildlife Service. They're the ones who give the permit and license. And for your information, I think they're undergoing a restructuring. Maybe they'll correct me. So the licensing might move. There's a new institution that they'll be forming in Naivasha, and I believe that's where now all the licensing will be happening. The Kenya Wildlife, I think, Service. There's an institute in Naivasha. I just forget the name. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. I think members, we may want to go on forever in this very interesting topic, but I would really like to keep time. It is now exactly 1 p.m. and these webinars take 1 hour. So we would like to stop here, but we would like to say, to welcome Professor Bukutsa. I can see she's online. BBC RP to say a word. I've also seen Professor Nguso, who is the director IBR. You can hear us, you can say a word, because this is where this research is domiciled. And then from there, we can end it at that. So, Professor Abuksa.
Maybe allow, or who is to talk first? Me or I think let Onguso talk first.
Well, Onguso, it looks like he has. Onguso, are you with us?
Yes, the doctor.
Say a word or two in 30 seconds.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending this informative conference. Dr. Ommeh has done well in the department. She even emerged one of the top publishers in the university, and we always encourage her and others to continue doing research and educating the rest of the community on the way forward. Otherwise, thank you very much. And next time you invite for another conference, we hope to have a good attendance like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any last word, Sheillah, before DVC speaks?
I would just want to sincerely thank you, the Directorate Research, for giving me this opportunity to highlight what I've done in Guinea Fowl research, as I said, which is one of my favorite research fields, because I've watched it grow from infancy, and I hope this will go through up to the end. So I'm hoping in the future we can work together with the university at least to see how we can have a variety that, because it seems people are really interested in having Guinea Fowl. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you offering any training on Guinea Fowl production? Not yet?
Not yet, because this is really, we're still in the basic kind of research, but we're now moving towards the applied research.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. DVC,
okay, thank you very much, Director, for the opportunity. Sorry I joined in late. I was delayed in the office, but I'm here. But I'll catch up with Sheillah on the details because I have a personal interest in Guinea Fowl. So I want to salute your directorate for continuous hosting of these seminars, which are there for researchers. Although Director IBR said that the attendance is good, I think we can do better than 25. I don't know what the problem is. Director, maybe find a way of doing more, unless some people are watching on YouTube, but we need to have more people tuning in. Secondly, I want to join the Director IBR to congratulate Dr. Sheillah Ommeh for her work, among other researchers, even who are doing this work and accepting to give this seminar. I'd encourage all of us who are attending to, if you are approached, whatever research you have, let us share it so that we can disseminate it. And maybe I'll talk to you, Sheillah, later to catch up what you presented earlier, because I came in when it was question time. And I want to say that Dr. Kinyuru, Director, Research, you have my support. Please, let's get as many people, even within JKU and without, to keep coming. That every week we should have a seminar. So far, so good. But I just want you to encourage you to continue. Lastly, I want to say that this afternoon also we shall be having Innovators and Researchers Forum, an open forum for researchers. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome you. Please come. This is an open forum where we discuss issues concerning research, innovation in the university. Otherwise, I want to say that it's a good progress we are making, and let's keep the fire burning at all times. Thank you, and back to you, Director Research.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The invitation for the afternoon's meeting on the Researchers Forum is in your emails. So kindly just go to your email, you get the link and the meeting ID to join the meeting at 2:30 to 4. Thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch and have a good afternoon. God bless you.
Thank you.